They were the faces of elegance, charisma, and cinematic brilliance, the stars who lit up the silver screen during Hollywood's golden age. But behind the glamour and the carefully curated public images, some of these legends harbored violent tempers, dark secrets, and disturbing behavior that terrified those around them. This is not the Hollywood you know. This is the Hollywood that hid its bruises behind the spotlight. From the 1920s through the 1960s, the golden age of Hollywood was a time of unmatched cinematic artistry, but it was also an era when powerful studios protected their stars at all costs, often burying scandals and silencing victims. In this list, we explore 21 vintage Hollywood stars whose violent behavior left a trail of fear, controversy, and in some cases, tragedy. These are not rumors. These are the stories that history tried to forget. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was the swashbuckling heartthrob of the 1930s and 40s, best known for roles in Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. But off-screen, Flynn's life was anything but heroic. In 1942, he was charged with statutory rape involving 2 underage girls. Though he was acquitted, the trial exposed a pattern of reckless behavior, heavy drinking, and womanizing. Flynn was also known for violent outbursts, especially when intoxicated. His autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, offers a candid glimpse into his chaotic lifestyle. Colleagues described him as charming but dangerous, a man who could turn from flirtatious to furious in seconds. Sean Penn. Though he rose to fame in the 1980s, Sean Penn's violent reputation echoes the volatility of vintage Hollywood. His marriage to Madonna in the mid-1980s was marked by allegations of abuse. In 1987, Penn was arrested for assaulting a photographer, but the most disturbing incident came in 1988, when he allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and physically assaulted her for hours. Though she later declined to press charges, the story resurfaced in multiple biographies and interviews. Penn's violent temper was well known on set, and his confrontations with the press became legendary. His talent was undeniable, but so was the fear he instilled in those around him. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was the epitome of old Hollywood glamour, with a career spanning silent films to Oscar-winning performances. But her legacy was forever altered by the 1978 memoir Mommy Dearest, written by her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford. The book detailed years of physical and emotional abuse, including beatings with wire hangers and forced nighttime cleaning rituals. While some questioned the accuracy of the memoir, others, including Crawford's other children, confirmed aspects of the abuse. On set, Crawford was known for her icy demeanor and explosive temper. Her need for control often turned into intimidation, making her one of the most feared actresses in the industry. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting with his raw, emotional performances in films like A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront, but his personal life was marred by violence and controversy. Brando admitted to being physically abusive in relationships, and his involvement in the infamous Last Tango in Paris scene drew widespread condemnation. In a 2007 interview, actress Maria Schneider revealed that a non-consensual scene in the film left her traumatized for life. Brando later expressed regret, but the damage was done. His volatile behavior extended to his family, with his son Christian convicted of manslaughter in 1990. Brando's brilliance was matched only by the chaos he left in his wake. James Cagney. James Cagney was the quintessential tough guy of 1930s cinema, often playing gangsters and streetwise anti-heroes. But his off-screen persona was just as intimidating. Though never convicted of a crime, Cagney was rumored to have ties to organized crime and was known for his explosive temper. He once punched a director during a disagreement on set and was involved in several barroom brawls. Cagney's autobiography paints a more measured picture, but colleagues often described him as unpredictable and confrontational. His tough guy image wasn't just an act. It was a reflection of a man who lived on the edge of violence. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was a force of nature. With her piercing eyes and commanding presence, she redefined what it meant to be a leading lady in Hollywood. But behind the scenes, Davis was known for her ferocious temper, ruthless ambition, and a penchant for confrontation that left colleagues shaken. Her most infamous feud was with fellow actress Joan Crawford. The two clashed during the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, a production that became legendary for its behind-the-scenes warfare. Davis allegedly had a Coca-Cola machine installed on set to spite Crawford, who was the widow of Pepsi's CEO. Crawford retaliated by placing weights in her costume during a scene where Davis had to drag her across the floor, causing Davis to injure her back. But Davis's volatility wasn't limited to rivalries. She was known to scream at directors, storm off sets, and physically lash out when provoked. In her autobiography, This and That, Davis admitted to slapping co-stars and once throwing an ashtray at a producer. Her daughter, B.D. Hyman, later published a memoir accusing Davis of emotional abuse and manipulative behavior, painting a portrait of a woman who demanded control at any cost. Despite the accolades and awards, Davis's legacy is tinged with fear. She was brilliant, yes, but also brutal, and those who crossed her rarely forgot the experience. Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum was Hollywood's epitome of cool, a laconic, sleepy-eyed cynic who oozed charm. Yet beneath that laid-back facade lurked a volatile man whose rebellious streak often erupted into violence. Mitchum's troubles started early. A 1948 marijuana bust could have derailed his career, but instead cemented his bad boy allure. Beyond drugs, alcohol fueled his bar fights, driven by a contempt for authority. He once punched a studio executive over a script dispute and was banned from Hollywood bars for his aggression. On set, Mitchum was unpredictable. Director Charles Lawton, who helmed The Night of the Hunter, called him a dangerous man prone to sudden rage. Co-stars witnessed him hurl chairs or storm off set in fury. His personal life mirrored this chaos. Though married to Dorothy Spence for over 50 years, their relationship was marred by infidelity, emotional distance, and frequent clashes. Mitchum quipped he had two acting styles, with and without a horse. Those close to him saw two personas, the suave screen idol and the volatile brawler who could lash out without warning. Hollywood's golden age gave us icons, but also hidden darkness. If this tale intrigued you, stay tuned for more untold stories of Tinseltown's complex legends. Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy, a two-time Academy Award winner, was revered for his quiet intensity and emotional depth on screen. Off-screen, however, he battled demons that made him unpredictable and frightening. A lifelong alcoholic, Tracy's legendary drinking binges often ended in violent outbursts. He'd disappear from sets, arrive intoxicated, or lash out at crew without provocation. Director Stanley Kramer likened working with him to walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. His storied romance with Katharine Hepburn was far from idyllic. Hepburn admitted Tracy could be emotionally abusive and physically intimidating when drunk. She shielded his reputation, covering for his absences, but privately endured his rages. Tracy's Catholic guilt over his drinking and infidelity fueled his self-destructive spiral. Though estranged from his wife, Louise, he refused divorce, living in constant emotional turmoil. Friends saw a man torn by contradictions, deeply moral, yet prone to violence. In his later years, Tracy's health faltered, but his temper persisted. On set, he remained a volatile force, respected for his brilliance, but feared for his unpredictability. For all his talent, Tracy was a man at war with himself, and those around him bore the cost. The golden age of Hollywood gave us legends, but their shadows hid dark truths. If this story gripped you, stay tuned for more untold tales of Tinseltown's complex icons. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was Hollywood's dazzling starlet, seductive, glamorous, and ever in the spotlight. Yet her polished image hid a life steeped in violence and tragedy. In 1958, her boyfriend, mob enforcer Johnny Stompanato, was stabbed to death in her Beverly Hills home. The killer was Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane. Court testimony revealed Cheryl acted to protect her mother, who endured months of Stompanato's physical abuse. Turner had tried to leave him, but he threatened to disfigure her and harm her family. That fateful night, Cheryl, overhearing a violent clash, grabbed a kitchen knife and fatally stabbed Stompanato. The media frenzy exploded. Turner's tearful testimony about the abuse swayed the jury, who deemed the killing justifiable homicide. Still, the scandal forever tarnished her legacy. Beyond this tragedy, Turner's life was a cycle of turmoil. 7 marriages, often to abusive or exploitative men, coupled with substance abuse and emotional volatility. Friends saw her as fragile, living in constant fear and chaos. A screen goddess, Turner's reality was a noir thriller, brimming with danger and betrayal. Hollywood's golden age gave us icons, but their shadows held dark truths. If this gripped you, stay tuned for more untold tales of Tinseltown's haunted stars. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift, a method-acting pioneer, redefined masculinity with haunting performances in A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity. Yet his life was a tragic spiral of trauma and addiction. In 1956, a near-fatal car crash after a party at Elizabeth Taylor's home shattered his face, requiring reconstructive surgery. The physical scars paled beside the emotional toll, driving Clift into painkiller and alcohol addiction. His behavior turned erratic. On set, he was often incoherent or combative, lashing out or breaking down in tears, frustrating directors and co-stars. His once bright career crumbled, becoming a Hollywood cautionary tale of brilliance consumed by darkness. As a closeted gay man in a harsh era, Clift lived in fear of exposure, a pressure that deepened his depression and fueled his substance abuse. Friends recalled nights when he drank himself unconscious, only to wake swinging at those trying to help. By his death in 1966, Clift was a shadow of himself. Yet those closest to him cherished not just the pain and violence, but the extraordinary talent that once captivated audiences. Hollywood's golden age gave us legends, but their shadows hid torment. If this story moved you, stay tuned for more untold tales of Tinseltown's fallen stars. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton, a radiant blonde with a captivating screen presence, seemed poised for stardom after roles in Trapped and Kiss Tomorrow, Goodbye. Yet her life unraveled into a tragic saga of violence and addiction. Her most notorious moment was a 1951 love triangle that exploded into violence. Payton was involved with actor Franchot Tone, a respected 1930s star, while also seeing Tom Neal, a volatile ex-boxer. When Neal confronted Tone at Payton's home, he brutally beat him, leaving Tone with a smashed cheekbone, broken nose, and concussion. The scandal dominated headlines, shattering Payton's reputation. Though she married Tone afterward, the marriage collapsed after 53 days. Payton returned to Neal, but their relationship was marred by frequent, often physical fights. Her career imploded, and she spiraled into alcoholism, prostitution, and homelessness. By her death in 1967, at age 39, Payton lived in squalor, a tragic shadow of her former glamour. Her story is a grim reminder of Hollywood's cruelty to its own, especially when violence overshadows talent. The Golden Age gave us stars, but their falls were often brutal. If this tale gripped you, stay tuned for more untold stories of Tinseltown's lost souls. George C. Scott. George C. Scott, renowned for his Oscar-winning role as General Patton in Patton, commanded the screen with a magnetic presence and booming voice. Off-screen, however, he was a volatile force, his rage fueled by alcohol and a contempt for authority. Scott's temper was notorious. He screamed at directors, punched walls, and stormed off sets. During Dr. Strangelove, Stanley Kubrick struggled with Scott's uncontrollable rants, cleverly tricking him into a legendary performance by framing takes as rehearsals. Scott's personal life mirrored this chaos. Married 5 times, including twice to actress Colleen Dewhurst, his relationships were passionate but explosive. Dewhurst called him a man of great talent and great fury, recounting nights when heavy drinking sparked violent outbursts. Colleagues tiptoed around him, wary of his unpredictable temper. Yet, his brilliance earned fierce respect. Scott famously rejected his Patton Oscar, denouncing the ceremony as a meat parade, a principled stand overshadowed by his inner demons. His violence wasn't just performative, it was real. Hollywood's golden age produced icons, but their shadows hid turmoil. If this story captivated you, stay tuned for more untold tales of Tinseltown's troubled legends. Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole was the embodiment of theatrical brilliance, a classically trained actor with a voice like velvet and eyes that could pierce through the screen. His performance in Lawrence of Arabia remains one of the most iconic in film history. But O'Toole's genius came with a price. A self-destructive streak, fueled by alcohol, recklessness, and a penchant for chaos. O'Toole was part of a generation of British actors who drank as hard as they worked. He once claimed to have consumed enough alcohol to float a battleship. His drinking binges were legendary, often ending in bar fights, arrests, or hospital visits. In one infamous incident, he was found passed out in a London gutter with a note pinned to his chest that read, "This is Peter O'Toole. He is an actor. Please get him home." His violent episodes were often tied to his drinking. Friends recalled nights when O'Toole would go from charming raconteur to raging madman in the span of a few drinks. He once smashed a hotel room in Dublin after a disagreement with a producer and was banned from several pubs across Europe for his behavior. Despite the chaos, O'Toole remained a beloved figure in the industry. His charisma was undeniable, and his performances were electric. But those who knew him best understood that behind the charm was a man constantly battling his own volatility, a Shakespearean figure whose greatest tragedy was himself, Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed was a walking contradiction, a gifted actor with a commanding presence and a man whose off-screen behavior often bordered on the unhinged. Known for roles in Women in Love, The Devils, and later Gladiator, Reed's career was marked by brilliance and bedlam in equal measure. Reed's reputation for violence was well-earned. He was a notorious brawler, often picking fights in pubs, on film sets, and even during interviews. He once challenged an entire rugby team to a fight, and won. In another incident, he headbutted a journalist who asked an impertinent question. His drinking was the stuff of legend. Reed claimed to have consumed over 100 pints of beer in a single weekend, followed by bottles of vodka and whiskey. On set, Reed could be both magnetic and menacing. Directors admired his talent, but feared his unpredictability. During the filming of The Three Musketeers, he got into a fistfight with co-star Raquel Welch's bodyguard. In Castaway, he reportedly showed up drunk and had to be restrained from attacking crew members. Reed's personal life was no less chaotic. He was expelled from multiple schools for fighting, and once described himself as a man of immense passion and very little patience. His wife, Josephine Burge, stood by him despite his violent outbursts, but friends often worried for her safety. Oliver Reed died in 1999 after a drinking contest in Malta. He collapsed in a bar after downing several pints of beer, shots of rum, and a few arm wrestling matches. His death was as dramatic as his life, a final act in a play that never knew restraint. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power was one of the most dashing leading men of the 1930s and 40s, with a face that graced magazine covers and a name that drew crowds to theaters. But behind the matinee idol image was a man grappling with inner turmoil, repressed identity, and a temper that could erupt without warning. Power's public persona was carefully managed by 20th Century Fox, which cast him in romantic and swashbuckling roles that emphasized his charm and masculinity. But privately, Power struggled with his sexuality in an era when being openly gay or bisexual could end a career. This internal conflict, combined with the pressures of fame, often manifested in mood swings and violent outbursts. Colleagues described Power as intense and brooding. He was known to lash out at assistants, storm off sets, and engage in heated arguments with directors. His marriages were short-lived and fraught with tension. His second wife, Linda Christian, later revealed that Power could be emotionally distant and prone to fits of rage, especially when drinking. Power also had a reputation for controlling behavior. He demanded absolute loyalty from those around him and was quick to cut off anyone who challenged him. Friends noted that he often seemed haunted, a man trying to live up to an image that didn't reflect his reality. In 1958, Power died of a heart attack at the age of 44 while filming Solomon and Sheba in Spain. His sudden death shocked Hollywood, but those close to him knew he had been burning out for years. Tyrone Power was a star who shone brightly and burned out far too soon. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas was the epitome of rugged masculinity in post-war Hollywood. With a cleft chin that seemed carved from granite and a voice that could command armies, he starred in classics like Spartacus, Paths of Glory, and Ace in the Hole. But behind the heroic roles and public charm, Douglas's private life was clouded by disturbing allegations and a reputation for domineering behavior. In later years, Douglas was accused of sexual assault by actress Natalie Wood. Though the accusation was not made public during his lifetime, Wood's sister Lana alleged in her 2021 memoir that Douglas raped Natalie when she was just 16 years old. The incident allegedly occurred at the Chateau Marmont in the 1950s, during a time when studios routinely covered up such scandals to protect their stars. Douglas never addressed the accusation publicly, and his family has denied the claim. Beyond that, Douglas was known for his aggressive on-set demeanor. He clashed with directors, intimidated co-stars, and insisted on creative control in nearly every project. His son, Michael Douglas, once described him as a tough man to please, and admitted their relationship was strained for much of their lives. Douglas's autobiography, The Ragman's Son, reveals a man who was unapologetically ambitious and often ruthless in pursuit of success. While his contributions to cinema are undeniable, so too is the fear he instilled in those who crossed him. For many, Kirk Douglas was not just a leading man, he was a force to be survived. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was one of the most prolific actors in Hollywood history, with a career that spanned 9 decades. He was the boy next door in the Andy Hardy series, a musical dynamo in Babes in Arms, and a versatile performer who could shift from comedy to drama with ease. But behind the scenes, Rooney's life was a whirlwind of violence, addiction, and emotional chaos. Rooney was married 8 times, and several of those relationships were marred by allegations of abuse. His first wife, Ava Gardner, described him as controlling and emotionally volatile. Later wives accused him of physical violence, and court documents from his divorce proceedings often referenced his explosive temper. In 2011, Rooney testified before Congress about elder abuse, revealing that he had been physically and emotionally abused by a family member, a shocking admission that cast new light on his own history of violence. He described being scared, disappointed, and angry, and said he had been robbed of his dignity and finances. The irony was not lost on those who remembered the many people Rooney had allegedly mistreated during his prime. Rooney's behavior on set was equally erratic. He was known to berate crew members, throw tantrums, and disappear for days during filming. His substance abuse only amplified his volatility, and many directors refused to work with him more than once. Despite his immense talent, Mickey Rooney's legacy is complicated. He was a man who brought joy to millions, and pain to many who knew him personally. Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis was the ultimate Hollywood heartthrob, a Bronx-born charmer with matinee idol looks and a mischievous grin. He dazzled audiences in films like Some Like It Hot, Sweet Smell of Success, and Spartacus. But behind the glamour, Curtis struggled with addiction, rage, and a reputation for abusive behavior that haunted his personal life. Curtis's marriage to Janet Leigh, one of Hollywood's golden couples, was far from idyllic. Leigh later revealed that Curtis was emotionally distant and prone to angry outbursts. Their daughter, actress Jamie Lee Curtis, has spoken candidly about growing up in a household marked by instability and substance abuse. Tony's drug use, particularly cocaine and heroin, intensified in the 1970s, leading to erratic behavior and violent mood swings. In his autobiography, American Prince, Curtis admitted to being a difficult husband and father. He described episodes of jealousy, infidelity, and emotional cruelty. He also recounted moments of physical aggression, including smashing furniture and threatening those around him during drug-fueled rages. On set, Curtis could be charming or combative. He clashed with directors and co-stars, often demanding special treatment and throwing tantrums when things didn't go his way. His ego, inflated by fame and dulled by narcotics, made him a volatile presence in any room. Tony Curtis's story is one of immense talent and deep flaws. He was a man who could light up the screen and darken the lives of those closest to him. Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase rose to fame in the 1970s as one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live and later became a household name through films like National Lampoon's Vacation and Fletch. But behind the comedic genius was a man known for cruelty, arrogance, and a violent temper that alienated nearly everyone he worked with. Chase's reputation for being difficult began early. He was fired from SNL after repeated clashes with cast members and writers. Bill Murray famously got into a physical altercation with Chase backstage, reportedly calling him a medium talent before punches were thrown. The fight was so intense that producers had to separate them. His behavior didn't improve with age. On the set of Community, Chase frequently berated writers, used racial slurs, and once walked off set mid-scene. Co-stars described him as toxic and emotionally abusive, with Donald Glover later revealing that Chase would make racially charged jokes to undermine his confidence. Chase's violent tendencies weren't limited to words. Actor Rob Hubel once recounted how Chase slapped him across the face at a comedy event for no apparent reason. The incident left Hubel stunned and bleeding, and it became one of many stories that painted Chase as a man who used his fame as a shield for bad behavior. Despite his comedic brilliance, Chevy Chase's legacy is marred by a pattern of aggression and cruelty. He made millions laugh, but left a trail of bruised egos and broken relationships behind him. Christian Bale. Christian Bale is one of the most intense actors of his generation, known for transformative performances in The Machinist, American Psycho, and the Dark Knight trilogy. But his commitment to his craft has often been accompanied by a volatile temper and disturbing behavior that has made headlines around the world. In 2008, Bale was arrested in London after allegedly assaulting his mother and sister at a hotel. Though charges were eventually dropped, the incident revealed a darker side to the actor's famously private life. That same year, an audio recording of Bale berating a crew member on the set of Terminator Salvation went viral. In the recording, Bale unleashes a profanity-laced tirade that lasts nearly 4 minutes, threatening to kick the crew member's ass and demanding he be fired. Bale later apologized, attributing the outburst to stress and exhaustion. But those who've worked with him describe a man who can be charming one moment and terrifying the next. His former publicist claimed that Bale was prone to emotional outbursts and once suggested that a fan who sent him a letter should be eliminated. Despite the controversies, Bale remains a respected figure in Hollywood. His performances are consistently lauded, and he has won numerous awards, including an Academy Award for The Fighter. But his reputation for volatility continues to follow him, casting a long shadow over his achievements. Christian Bale is a study in contrasts, a master of control on screen, and a man often out of control off it. Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire, celebrated for his boyish charm and iconic Spider-Man role, has long maintained a quiet public persona. Yet, whispers of a darker side have emerged, painting him as manipulative and emotionally abusive. In Molly's Game, Molly Bloom's memoir about her high-stakes underground poker games, Maguire is exposed as the worst tipper, biggest sore loser, and most controlling player. One shocking incident recounts him offering Bloom a $1,000 poker chip to bark like a seal. When she refused, he humiliated her in front of the table, showcasing his cruel streak. Fellow players corroborated Bloom's account, describing how Maguire wielded his fame to intimidate. He manipulated game rules, pressured dealers, and mocked those who lost big, leaving a trail of bullied and degraded opponents. While not physically violent, his emotional aggression was undeniable. Beyond the poker table, Hollywood insiders have labeled him difficult to work with, contributing to his career's noticeable slowdown. Though a talented actor, Maguire's charm seems superficial, his true nature far less heroic than the characters he portrayed. The golden age of Hollywood birthed legends whose charisma lit up the screen, but their shadows often hid troubling truths. For every fan who adored them, a co-star, spouse, or stranger feared their wrath. Their films may live forever, but so should the reality of who they were. If this story captivated you, subscribe, and hit the bell for more untold Hollywood tales. Stories the history books gloss over, but the internet keeps alive. Stay curious, stay critical, and keep watching for the truth behind the glamour.